When you play the Game of Thrones,
Subscribe and like.
you die. There is no middle ground.
This came from the Amistist. I didn't say that right. The Amist Empress. I tried. I really did try. I don't think I said your name right, but I tried. Do you think somehow Darkstar will become Aegon's Sword of the Evening, mirroring Rhaegar and Arthur's relationship? That's an interesting idea, because I do think that it would make sense that young Griff would meet up with Darkstar, just based on symbolism, and a lot of the things going on right now for Varys is symbolism, putting that behind, young Griff, especially if he gets the sword Blackfire in the future. I think it makes sense, but the problem I run into is, given the Dornish are heavily behind young Griff, it would appear. How would that work? Because you got to remember, Darkstar basically has been made target number one. He is the person that is being shown as being guilty of, everything, more or less, right? Killing Eris Oakheart, slashing Myrcella. He's basically the fall guy, right? For Doran to be able to lie about what actually happened with Myrcella. So how would that then go down? Because Darkstar would then know that information, and it would put Darkstar and Arianne in direct conflict. And so how would young Griff deal with that? And that's one of the things I really don't know about Darkstar, is like, how will his plot go down given what we've learned about the Dornish plot in the past? That's the question you have to answer if we're going to get to some idea of, Darkstar with young Griff. There also has to be a resolution to the Arianne and Darkstar plot as well. Ruckus asks, doesn't really ask, but states, he is the father of Edric Dane and on an epic quest of semen retention. Maybe. What maybe? Money asks, what happened to him that he turned out so edgy? Well, Darkstar, you see, he's just a guy that, he doesn't like that everybody's always talking about Arthur Dane, and so he's kind of put off by that, and he's kind of like this brooding kind of type of guy. And none of this is negative, by the way, Ashley. I'm not saying anything negative. Being edgy isn't always a bad thing, but it's turned him into kind of a badass fighter, as well. So that's all I'm saying. JC says or asks, what will Darkstar's catchphrase be? Something corny like, I am the star, or I am the star in the dark. I am Darkstar. Unfortunately for Darkstar, he's got some bad catchphrases and such. I like yours, JC. I can't really think of anything outside of Arthur Dane shine brightly while I shine darkly. I don't know. Buell asks, do you think that Obara and him are allies? What is going to happen when Balon and Arya Hoda fight him/them if Obara is with Darkstar? So, I think this is the interesting point of this, right? And I talked about this a little bit earlier on in the stream. Given the fact that we know that Arya Hoda and Obara and also Balon Swan is also going to more or less trying to kill Darkstar. How is that going to work out, right? Because I don't think it makes sense for Obara's character. Everything we know about Obara has been, okay, she wants to attack the Lannisters. She wants to bring war to them. And really all that Doran has basically sent her to do is just, okay, find Darkstar, kill him. But they're also not going to war. So you're still basically cock-blocking Obara into what she wants to do. And when you give it this idea that Darkstar is somebody that is trying to make a name for themselves, one of the greatest swordsmen, I could see a situation where Darkstar convinces Obara that, she should back him, and they can start, attacking Old Town, all these other things like she wanted to do. She stated those things to Doran. I think Obara is the key to Arya Hoda's death. I think she will switch to Darkstar's side, and that will lead to this plot where you'll have Obara and Darkstar building up an army. Maybe they go to attack Old Town, as Euron does it, and maybe that kind of regiment also links up, for instance, with young Griff. There's a lot there. There's a lot there that's very difficult to predict, but I do think that's an interesting idea that you did bring up well. Aegor asks, if he joins them, do you think his relationship will be like Duck and Egg, Raleigh and young Griff? I think, again, the problem with the character of Darkstar going with young Griff is you kind of come to this point where there's so many complex relationships between the people backing young Griff and Darkstar himself. right? But if Darkstar and maybe Ariane and Duran were able to come to some sort of peace, I definitely could see Darkstar being somebody, like that to Aegon. But yeah, I don't know. I could definitely see him being in the Kingsguard, but I also could see him not wanting to, because if you are somebody that's trying to get out of Arthur Dayne's shadow, wouldn't you not want to do the exact same thing that basically Arthur Dayne did, go into the Kingsguard of a king? I don't know. It's interesting to think about what Darkstar's motivations and things are, because he is such an elusive character. We don't have much information on the character of Darkstar. If you think about it, right? If I just go to the wiki right now for Darkstar, hold on. There isn't that much that's actually there. Like he barely has any information even on the wiki. So it's one of those things where George introduced the character, but then didn't give us a ton of time with that actual character, which I think we'll see more of in Winds of Winter. Getting to my last comment on YouTube about Darkstar, Ashley asks, Grease, my buddy, my pal, this is wonderful news. I just know this will be your best video ever. My question, do you think we should see Darkstar serving on Fagon's Kingsguard, making this the manifestation of Quait's prediction about his son's son being paired with a Mummer's dragon? I should also mention that in this scenario, I view Darkstar as being Oberyn Martell's son. Also, that Darkstar was promised a spot on Fagon's Kingsguard by Varys in exchange for attacking Myrcella. This is very interesting. So actually, the one thing, the last part really kind of stuck out to me. Why do you think that Varys would have told Darkstar to basically attack Myrcella? Because the one thing I would say on that idea is, did Varys know what Arianne had planned with Myrcella? Because that is the situation that allows Darkstar to do what he's able to do. I don't know. I think that's an interesting idea, but I do think, yeah, it could be this idea that Darkstar goes with young Griff. I think if we're going to connect him to the story, because you have to remember as well, Darkstar is not going to have any characters with him that are POVs currently, right? Unless Arya Hoda switches to Darkstar's side, or Darkstar and Duran make some sort of peace, and so then we see, Arya Hoda with Darkstar in that plot line. I think it's interesting because we're not really going to see him through, POV's eyes until he's with someone maybe like young Griff, or maybe Samwell Tarly, given he'll be at Old Town, and maybe that's where Darkstar is going to go. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see how George kind of gets around that. I think that's one thing he could be questioning as well. I don't like people saying how great the most famous member of my family is. Yeah, that's basically Darkstar. Yes, Obara specifically wants to sack Old Town, right? She's of all the people right now that approach Duran of the Sand Snakes, she's the one that is preaching for violence, for let's kill them. Let's I'm pissed about Oberyn dying. We need to just start messing stuff up. Obara wants to burn Old Town to ash, and she doesn't like Arya, but she doesn't really hate him either, does she? Yeah, she's kind of just in the middle on Arya Hoda, but you also have to think Arya Hoda helped get her imprisoned. So I see a lot of potential for an Obara and Darkstar alliance. I think Balon is going to be killed as well, May. I think that is what's going to happen. Some people say Darkstar was supposed to be Edric Dayne after George R. R. Martin's allegedly 5-year time skip or time jump after Storm of Swords, and he kept the character. Definitely could be, Matt. It's just based upon the fact that you look at Darkstar and he is not foreshadowed or talked about until Feast for Crows. I think that makes a lot of sense. I really do. It's the same idea of young Griff as well. There wasn't really any indication that there was this character of young Griff until it happened. I think a lot of that is due to him not fully having the story planned out for other more minor characters. Matthew Hagen asks, is he going to steal Dawn? I do think he will. I think Darkstar will steal Dawn. That makes sense to me. Ricky asks, and Ashley, you may want to either A, sit down, or B, cover your ears, but Ricky says this. Why is he the worst character? Why is he such a C word? And why is he of the night? So, yeah. What I'll say about that, Ricky, is Darkstar there's not a lot of lore to him yet. He doesn't have a lot of book time, so he's not my favorite character in the world, but I don't know if I'd go that far.